of my favorite Gary Larson cartoons. I think everybody had a Mr. Big Nose for a teacher at one time or another. Anyhow, welcome back to the shop. This is going to be episode 21 on the Panther project. And here we go. Now, that is the sleeve that I made to go on over the end of that crankshaft. And I had the engine apart because this sprocket affair sits on a taper very similar to what like a Norton Commando would, and it's also keyed, unlike the Panther one, which on the lightweight models is not keyed. It just sits on the taper, and you know, held there by the grace of God and the taper. But anyway, this piece here slides on over there and allows me to keep pressure on that sprocket up against the taper, so it's not going to move. Plus, like I said, there is a good sized key in there holding that in place, and there's a couple of grub screws in there. So I thought, well, hey, they came with the slug there, so I thought I might as well use those too. So anyway, it's well fastened on, but the trouble is, okay, this sticks out just too far. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous that it sticks off that far, at least on this application, but it's because the crankshaft is so long. Had I been thinking about what I was going to be doing, I might have changed my mind with this and either drilled that in a little deeper while I had the crankshaft out, or cut threads on the outside of this area and just put a big nut on the outside to hold that whole affair in place. As it is, though, I have a 3/8 grade 8 bolt there holding that all together. So the good thing is this hole is quite deep. I could cut an inch off of this just the way it is and still have a 1/2 inch of thread in there for me to get a hold of with the bolt. But I'm going to use this as a sort of a jig, so I can drill that hole in there a little bit deeper. I don't need to go too far, but another 1/2 inch would make me feel comfortable knowing that there was lots and lots of thread there for that bolt to get a hold of. So I will get a drill a little bit smaller than this hole actually, and try to push that drill in there about another 1/2 inch. Then I'm going to lop the end off the crankshaft there, and I'll run a tap down in there to make sure that the thread is clean and goes all the way to the bottom of the new hole, and that should bring this whole affair in a lot closer, and I'll be able to cut off some of this some of the extra metal from that piece there. I'll probably be able to cut about 1 inch off it, so that will bring that whole affair in closer to the engine, so that when I make a guard for all this stuff, it won't be sticking off too far. So let me get started with that. I'll get my drill bits out, my drill, and start pushing on that. Alright. Now I got ran that tap in there. Cut really well. It's a good quality tap. These ones you get from Princess Auto or what's the other place down the States. They have Boys, that kind of stuff, Harbor Freight. They're okay for a few holes, but then they just start to get dull. Where if you get something, you know, that's a good quality tap, it'll go in there just fine. And all I want to do with this is the bottoming tap. I already had the taper tap in there, so just run that right into the bottom. Maybe only a turn or two anyway. Clean that up. Okay. I barely felt that starting to cut before she hit the bottom, so that is good. Now I know the threads go all the way to the bottom of the hole. So this will now screw in there all the way. I need to put this up there now. This is way longer than it needs to be. Excuse me. good section off of here in the lathe, so I'll just mark that before I put it in the lathe and cut it off. But anyway, I'll go up there and do that. Get that ready to go in. Oh, parting can be such sorrow. Got something Shakespeare wrote and something or other. Put a little bit of oil on that. Put that in there to catch it. So now I'm just going to pop that on the engine and see if that's going to work. All right, let's see what we came up with here. Yeah, that's good. And this sticks out about 1/16 of an inch proud of the crankshaft. So I know that when I put my washers on there, that's going to push that in there really hard. And that, by the way, is a sprung tapered washer. So I know that's really going to push that in there good. So anyway, maybe I should just use the thicker one. Yeah, this is a type of washer that goes on the end of a lawnmower blade, actually. So if it'll hold a lawnmower blade on, it'll sure as blazes hold that on there. So anyway, I might have to cut a little bit off the bolt. So I'm going to screw that in there and have a little look. See if I need to cut any off the bolt. Let's see. I want that to screw in as far as I can screw it in without before it bottoms out. That way I know I've got a lot of threads in there, and I can really torque that bolt down good to hold that whole affair onto the end of the crankshaft where it is right now. Okay, I'm at the bottom of the hole there now, and I'm about 1/8 of an inch too long on that bolt, so I'm going to cut off about 3/16 of an inch from the end of that bolt, and then I'll put it back in. So I'll put you on pause. One more small point to make before I move on with making that primary cover. I did measure the piece that I cut off the end of that spool piece here, and I shortened that length up 1.25 inches. So that's quite a difference. You know, it's not sticking off, because that was way out in front of that brake pedal, like right about there before. And it's quite a bit shorter now, so it's in there pretty much even with the brake pedal actually now. So that's a whole lot better than it was. Quite pleased with that. Didn't realize it was 1.25 inches. I thought it was only 1 inch. Last night, before I went in the house for the evening and locked the place up, I decided I'd go out in my storage shed and look through some of the bits and pieces that I had out there. And look what I found. That's a primary cover, or the outer primary cover, from an AJS or a Matchless. I bought that, I don't know, about 10 years ago, because I needed the dome that covered up the clutch on that bike. But anyway, this is spare, and all I'm using this for is a cover. I'm not going to make a sealed primary on this or anything. I just want something to keep my pants from getting caught in the primary chain or the clutch basket itself. So anyway, I found that and I brought it out here and I set it on the bike. The front end of it fits right over the front sprocket on the engine, and the alignment of that of the clutch in that hole is nearly perfect. So all I got to do is put a little notch here in the bottom of it, tap a little notch in there so that I can drop that cover down a little bit lower, and well, that should be perfect. And even the brake lever will move. Well, it didn't that time, but it will. The brake lever will move and not hit the back of that plate. So anyway, yeah, you talk about fortuitous. So this is why I almost never throw anything away. I can usually find a use for it. So anyway, that's a good start for that. I'm going to have to make something up in terms of a cover over the clutch, but well, that'll give my metalworking skills a little bit of a workout anyway. But I mean, this whole thing has been repaired. As you can see, there's some braze or some kind of weld on there, and I don't know why, but anyway, I can fix this all up with a bit of body fill and that sort of thing. So this ought to work out just perfect. So I'll start working on that, see what I can come up with, and start banging and hammering and see how she goes. And so I've made a bit of progress here with that primary cover. I got that foot peg out of the way. Just look at that. Geez, I do good work. All right, here's the primary cover. There's a lip on here that would go into a rubber seal that would seal up that matchless or AJS primary cover. But I want this to be further out over, so I just banged that lip down flat so I get a little more coverage over the chain. I took that foot peg off so I could get this in and out of here a little better, but things seem to be looking pretty good there so far. What I did was I made up this band right here, and it is tapered, sort of like a funnel. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's a little smaller on this diameter than on that diameter. But, anyway, kind of like the way you would make a funnel, except on a very long taper, huge. The kind of stuff, like I said, that they would have taught you to do in industrial arts in high school or something. But in any case, I may end up cutting this down a little thinner. We'll see what happens. But first I need to make some sort of a, see if I can get this out of here. Anyway, I need to make a domed cover for here because that clutch needs to be able to move out like so. And you don't want that touching against the cover. So the next thing for me to do is try to find, well, not try to find, I know where my 18 gauge steel is. I'll cut out a piece of 18 gauge steel and start forming that into a bowl shape. I'll let you know some of the jiggery pokery I get up to when I've got it cut out. Now I've taken the guard off and I've been working on a dome. I cut a piece of that 18 gauge steel with a pair of shears, which wasn't the easiest thing to do, but I got through it. I could have used my zip cut on the grinder, but I hate using noisy tools, and let's face it, a zip cut is awful friggin' noisy. Might have saved me a bit of time, but in the end it's less stressful using something that's quiet and you just use your hands to do. Anyway, instead of laying that on a sandbag and beating the tarnation out of that and trying to shrink the outer edges, what I did was I took 4 cuts down here and I cut about a 1/4 inch taper out of them from about 1 inch away from the center out. And then when I bent those in, that will give me a rough bowl-shaped pattern. Now I'm still going to have to put that over a stump and work that metal, but I'm already in the ballpark just from doing that little bit of welding and cutting. So that's going to sit on there like that. Of course, I'm going to have to trim it to make sure it's the right size and all that. But I think if I hold this down here, you'll get the general idea. But now, I'll get my block of wood out and start working this piece of metal over that block of wood. Bang, bang, bang. Okay, well, I don't think that's half bad. You can see one little seam through the weld there, but that's just on the edge of the weld. And hey, that's what body fills there. I could probably grind that out if I wanted to, but that doesn't matter. I could just use a little bit of body filler in that. But if I look at this in profile, you can see that it has that dome shape I was after. So now all I need to do is set it on there, draw around where this part meets the inside of that part, and cut this out the right side, and that should be able to weld that in place and have me a nice Frankenstein Panther kind of a primary cover. So let's see what I can do with that. I'm not going to weld that on there tonight. It's getting a little bit later here, but yeah, I don't like doing hot work too late into the evening. But anyway, I'm going to cut that out with the shears and get it the right size, and I'll show you what I got when it's the right size, and then tomorrow or the next day I can weld it on. Hey, there it is, cut the size. Let's say I'm not gonna weld that in place all the way till tomorrow, but first I will just tack it in a couple of spots and hold it up in place and make sure that it's not going to interfere with anything. Like I may need to shorten this section a bit to get this in a little closer even. But anyway, the inside's not as pretty as the outside, but I don't think anybody cares about what the inside looks like. So yeah, anyway, that's something I'm pretty pleased with, and all that banging and hammering, that only represents about a half hour or 40 minutes worth of work. And I don't use any special tools for this. I just use a ball peen hammer. They have a sort of a rounded face on them anyway. And all I use for my stump is just a 3x4 block with a little hollow area ground in the top, so I can get curves with it. And yeah, that's all I use. Nothing special. So you know, if I was doing this kind of thing every day, I'm sure I would have some better tools to do this with. But doing this sort of thing reminds me of someone I used to know who lived around here. His name was Gus Hurdle, and Gus could make just about anything out of sheet metal. And if you needed a gas tank repaired, if you wanted to get it re-chromed, say, or something like that, you couldn't go on eBay in those days and order a brand new chrome-sided gas tank from India. You had to have some sort of a skilled artisan in the area here who knew how to repair it. And that's what Gus did. I used to say if I knew half of what Gus forgot, I'd be doing all right. But you know, to do that type of work and do it well, you need to specialize in it, and that's what Gus did. And he's gone now, and there are very, very, very few other people I know of in the province who could do that kind of work that he used to do. So it was pretty amazing, you know, and it was an honor to have known him. He passed away, God, must be 5-6 years ago now, but I just thought I'd mention that old chap. He was quite an interesting dude. Well, how about that? Pretty pleased with that. Let's look at it from up top, get a good view of that. That domed cover came out pretty good. I've welded it to this piece. By the way, I cut a 1/4 inch off the edge of this piece here because it was sticking out further than it really needed to. So yeah, I cut a 1/4 inch off of that, and then I welded the dome onto that. And I just finished grinding that off with the flexible wheel on the grinder. And That doesn't look too bad to my eyes anyway. Mind you, the whole thing is going to need a light coat of body fill like this. This is an ugly repair that somebody did a long time ago, but I'm just going to touch that up with a bit of body fill. But first I need to position this correctly on here and get some proper mounts. I'm going to go to the lugs, from here to the lugs that are on the engine, and back here on the frame I'll hook one into there. I'll probably hook the chain guard onto that as well. Perfect spot for it. And of course back here on this fender strut there's already a mounting bolt for a chain guard, so that should be fairly easy to mount up on there anyway. But anyway, for tonight I think I'm done with that primary guard. I'm just going to bolt everything up firmly in place and make sure that I don't have to adjust anything or make any modifications to anything. But yeah, so far that's pretty darn good. It's coming along well. It's not going to need a lot of fill to smooth it over. So anyway, you know what? I think I'm going to wrap that up for this little video. I'll carry on with this next week. I'll get those mounting lugs on it and get at least get a coat of primer on it anyways, and get most of the thing smoothed up so you can see what I'm going to have when I'm finished. Right now it's a little rough looking, like you can see the welds up around here and that. Anyway, as I said, that's enough for now, so be good to each other, and I'll be back again next week, and I'll probably be carrying on with this.